Okay, so this is our first video about getting familiar with R. As you can see here, I've already loaded R in Windows. Anything I say right now will be applicable to the Mac users, so don't worry. So when you load R, you're going to see this first page here. The top part there is just about the licensing. The most important thing is at the bottom of the screen, which is with the greater sign. This is your command line. So this is everything you're going to type into R. You'll type in here, you hit enter, and that'll be submitted to R, and then you'll get your result. So one nice thing about R is it can act like a basic calculator. So if we do some basic functions, say addition, subtraction, so forth, you can use R to do that. So let's say do some numbers. So 2 plus 5, we know that answer should be 7. You hit enter, and there you go. 2 minus 5, negative 3, and most functions are pretty straightforward. So 2 times 5 will be like this. 2 divide 5 with the forward slash will be like that. The exponential of, let's say, 2, exp, and in brackets we'll type in 2. So let's say we want to take a log. Now remember, there are technically two types of log. We have the regular log with base 10. So you actually have to type in log and then 10. And then your number in between the brackets. And if you want the natural log, you actually just type in log. And then the last one will be to the power something. So let's say 2 to the power 5 will be 2, then the hat symbol, which is just above the number 6 on your keyboard, and done. So one thing you should notice here is that R does not care about white spaces. So for example, I typed in 2 plus 5. This is the exact same thing as 2 space plus space 5, or however many spaces you want. Exact same thing. Now, what we just dealt with there are called scalar values. R can do the same type of thing with a vector value. So to create a vector, you need to use the function c. So c like this, and then you'll type in the number of values you want. So let's say we want 1 through 5, separated by a comma. So it'll be 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So then if you hit enter, then you get the vector of 1 through 5. And the same type of thing can occur with the function. So let's say you want to add a constant to this. So then let's say it's 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 plus 2. We get 3 through 7. Or if we want to multiply it, so let's say 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 times, let's say 5. So then we should get 5, 10, all the way to 25. There you go. So as you notice, it can be a little annoying to keep typing in the values over and over again, as in type in C, soft bracket 1, comma 2. Now here's a tip. If you use your arrow keys on your keyboard, it will go through the history. So if you type the arrow key pointing upward, like this, it went through the history. And if you type again, the previous one should be the +5 version. There you go. And if you if you hit the arrow key up one more time, it should just show you C bracket 1, comma 2, and so forth. And there you go. So by using the arrow keys, you can quickly go through your history without having to retype things over and over again. Another tip is the sequence. So we already saw that we want a sequence of 1 through 5. So another way of getting that is to use the colon, this symbol here. So let's say we want the values of 1 through 5. So then you could do 1 colon and your endpoint 5. You hit enter, and you're done. Another option is called sequence, so SEQ. And just like with any of the other functions, you'll need to use a soft bracket. And so you have your start point, let's say it's 1 again, your end point, which will be 5, and they're separated by a comma. Now what this does is, again, it creates a sequence between 1 and 5. By default, the unit value or the step value is 1. So we hit enter, we get 1 through 5. But let's say we wanted a much larger value, let's say 1 through 100. So obviously you don't want to type in 1, 2, 3, 4, and so forth. So you can do sequence 1 to 100. Or let's say we want to do a sequence of 1 to 100, but I want to have all the odd numbers. So 1, 3, 5, and so forth. So we know that the step size is going to be 2. So the third digit, which by default is 1, we can switch it to 2. So if we type this in, we'll get 1, 3, 5, all the way up to 99. There you go. Okay, so we just showed you some scalars, some vectors, and now for our matrix. So matrix is a 2D, well, it's basically 2D. So to create a matrix, what you can do is type in matrix. And let's say we want the values 1 through 12 in a 3-row by 4-column matrix. So let's combine functions. So 1 through 12 using the colon, comma. The second value will then be the number of rows, so it's 3. And then the second value is the number of columns, 4. And then if you hit enter, there you go. You get a 3 by 4 column matrix with the values going down the columns. Now, let's say for example you wanted to go across the rows. We could do the exact same thing by using the option by row. And by default it's set to false, but if you set it true, so by row equal t, you'll get the exact same thing, but going across the rows instead. And there you go. So you may be wondering, okay, we've got these functions, but how do I know about all these small little options here and there? So you can figure out by using the help command. So if you type in help matrix, or alternatively, if you type in question mark and then matrix, the help command will pop up. So let's say enter. Give it a second for my browser to pop up. And as you can see here, this is the help manual for our documentation. We've got matrix information here, and then you can see right here, matrix, the first bit of information is data, the second will be the number of rows, then the number of columns, and then by row, which is set to false by default. Now, nice thing about R is that it's intuitive, so you don't have to say data is equal to whatever you want, and row is equal to whatever you want, and so forth. You can easily just type in the values like I did, 1 through 12, 3, and 4, because it knows that the first position has to be the data, the second position has to be the number of rows, and the third position has to be the number of columns, and so forth. So hopefully this will get you started with getting familiar with R. And in the next video we'll talk about saving a few objects and about how to save the session in R.